Welcome to the Africa Climate Summit, the largest gathering probably in the continent's history on climate change and climate change response. UNEP, the UN Environment Programme, is here. Why are you here?
First of all, I have to say wow, because the entire world has come here. Look at what Kenya and the African Union have pulled off. It's remarkable. I don't know how many tens of thousands of people are here, but it's a lot. And how many heads of state? 20, 30? And beyond the heads of state from the continent and the leaders from the continent, prime ministers, heads of government, ministers, you have the entire world turn up. Every single country of significance is here because the African continent is saying, hang on a minute, let's just have a conversation about what climate change is doing here and what we here in Africa, I'm not considering myself, but I'm speaking as they spoke, what the African continent offers as an opportunity for investments, for solutions, a young continent, a continent that's energized, motivated, educated, determined to make a difference. That's what we're seeing. So UNEP, this is our home. We are based here in Nairobi, Kenya. When the UN decided when the world decided back in 1972 to establish the United Nations Environment Programme, they were looking around and they were saying, New York, Geneva, Vienna, is Rome, Paris, is there a conversation we can have here? And so we're very, very proud that we here in Nairobi are in a United Nations global headquarters. We are a global organization, but we are based here. This is our home. And of course, climate change, we consider it an absolute priority. It is an environmental crisis. It is an environmental priority. So how could we not be present and supporting our Kenyan friends in their leadership, supporting our African Union friends in their leadership to command the attention of the world on climate change. So that's why we're here, and we are delighted to see what has happened.
That's fantastic, and it's wonderful to know that UNEP is very much on the ground in Africa, and I think that makes a huge difference. Thousands of people have arrived here to be part of the Africa Climate Summit. What is UNEP's specific objective here? Or what are UNEP's specific objectives in having a presence here?
So I think, we're pleased that my team has a little pavilion there in the exhibition space. But beyond that, look, Africa is now saying, enough with the victimhood story. Yes, we are victims and we claim our rights to finance, our justice, clearly. And they have every right to say that. But beyond that, how are you going to decarbonize if you don't invest in Africa? You have made commitments in all your other countries, but you can't make that happen if you do not make investments in Africa, in industry, in opportunity, in energy. And so this is really a win-win opportunity. And I think that what we are seeing here is that. So why UNEP? Well, of course, I have had conversations with heads of state, with ministers, etc., because we are heading, after all, to COP28. One thing is just get it done already, the 100 billion. I'm tired of talking about it. I was at COP15 in 2009, at which point the world promised that by 2020 there shall be 100 billion. We're nearly there. It'll have to be done. But 100 billion is small change compared to what is needed. So we need to mobilize private sector finance. We need to ensure that the focus on adaptation is very much there. It's not enough just to talk about mitigation and energy, because we have procrastinated, climate procrastination for 28 years, it's COP28. Therefore, the climate hits that the world is seeing are much heavier. So UNEP, ourselves here on the continent and in the world at writ large, we're very much involved in supporting countries with an immense amount of projects on creating resilience to adaptation, being smart about using nature's infrastructure to protect you when the rains come, when the floods come, or when the droughts come. These are some of the issues that we are discussing here. We also are discussing the blue ocean economy and the blue answers to the climate problem.
That's fantastic. And it's great to hear about what UNEP thinks ought to be done. How do you leverage your unique position to compel, to guide, to encourage the changes that are needed? What is UNEP able to do, or what is UNEP doing? What is your strategy to ensure that, as you said, the victimization and the victimhood narrative is put to one side, and there is greater focus on, as you've mentioned, adaptation and climate financing?
So first of all, we've been quite noisy about the fact that climate justice means climate finance. Look, if you cause me harm, I need some restitution. And that restitution is not asking for handouts. It's just like, I broke my leg and I couldn't go to work for some days or whatever, right? So I need restitution. I'm not asking for handouts. I'm just asking for justice. So I think, first of all, just giving voice to that and ensuring that climate finance is real, is on the table, is not just talk, and holding to account. I think that's a fair point. But beyond that, I think, the continent has, just 2 weeks ago, UNEP supports the African continent to bring together the negotiators in Addis under the African Ministerial Conference to deal with more the nitty-gritty, not the heads of state stuff, as negotiators will be departing for Dubai and for the COP. So I think a lot of getting the ducks in order at the more nitty-gritty level, not at the Nairobi Declaration level, is a place where UNEP plays a big role. What is it that we want from COP28, or what the world wants, and what I think the African continent is also demanding? First of all, this is a time when the finance, I've mentioned that. We are also going to be discussing the operationalization of the loss and damage fund, the hows, how will it function, who gets what, when, how is it governed, how does it disperse? There's a lot of details. We're also going to be having a conversation because this is a time when what is called a global stock take will be delivered. That means we're going to take stock on the actual measures that we have taken to reduce our carbon emissions and the actual measures we have taken to increase our resilience and our adaptation. So that global stock take will be a moment of truth-telling to ourselves. We made some promises back in 2015 under the Paris Accord. How are we doing? This is kind of the global stock take that will happen. So Africa will have some responses to that, I'm sure. So this is another dimension. Another dimension that Africa is putting on the table and the world is putting on the table at the COP28 is, adaptation. We say adaptation. Do we have a target for that? What does that look like? What does it really mean? And what's good adaptation, what's bad? I don't know. Well, I think I do. But the point is, let's have a conversation globally. And finally, renewable energy. Now, we are sitting in a country, amazingly, that has 92%, 93 maybe, percent of its electricity generated from renewable energy. How about that? But not all countries have been that fortunate or strategic. So can we think of a target or a stretched ambition for renewable? Because that will also force financing into place. So I think these are the kind of conversations that we expect to happen in Dubai. And I think here in the corridors, that's very much what is also being talked about.
Thank you so much, Inger. My last question, how would you define success? For the Africa Climate Summit to be a success, what does it look like, or what does success look like for UNEP?
Look, I would dare to venture to say it's already a success because you had so many people and especially so many heads of state and so much commitment. But what defines a success is, of course, look, now this topic has been raised not just at the ministerial level, but at the summit level. This is a massive leap. So the success has to be each head of state going back home and demanding of his cabinet or her cabinet that they now look at climate from the development path. How can we essentially make our development, reduce our poverty, but do that on a green pathway? I am the Minister of Trade, what do I have to do? I am the Minister of Economy, what do I have to do? I'm the Minister of Infrastructure, what opportunities are there? And what financing, because we have to come back to the justice of financing, is available to me so that I don't pollute my way to development and then clean up later? That's a very expensive proposition.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we heard President Ruto say in his speech, look, let's green first, green our way to development and poverty reduction. And I think he's absolutely right. And I think that message reverberated through the halls here. And then, of course, when the heads of state turn up, first in New York at the General Assembly of the United Nations, where there is a climate action summit, now is the time to push, really push these positions that have been agreed here, and then taking them to the COP in Dubai. But COPs are just meetings. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. And so placing that in reality in countries and creating a lot of exchanges between African nations. I have heard of Kenyan companies making deals in other countries, I won't mention which, that are potentially for renewable energy investments. I mean, how wonderful is that? It's great for the continent, great for jobs, great for growth. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. All of that is part of a broader package of success.
Fantastic. Inger, thank you so much. Thank you for appearing on the show. And we all are hoping that the real impact of this summit will be felt across the continent of Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
It was a
My
pleasure.
pleasure.